Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Ron G. to the Reboot Chronicles. He is the president and CEO of Shiseido Americas, founded 150 years ago in 1872. That's right, 150 years ago. Shiseido was Japan's first Western-style pharmacy that was transformed into a global beauty giant operating in 120 countries and regions with 39,000 employees, who generated approximately $8 billion in revenue last year with a market cap of over $21 billion. Pretty impressive. Ron, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a long time coming. I don't know where to start with you. There's so much going on around the globe. Shiseido is such a interesting, diverse, almost like a hybrid kind of company. With the family roots as well. So I always love talking to companies like yours. And the good news is, first quarter this year, it looks like sales are up 6.6%, and things are coming on strong. So maybe just start out a little bit about what's going on in the Americas. It's quite a big region, a lot of activity. Tell us about the biz.
Yeah, well, listen, it's an exciting time for us. We had a great first quarter here at Shiseido Americas. Actually, we've been carrying some great momentum since the second half of last year. And what's interesting is we are at Shiseido Americas really focused on the luxury segment. That's where we play, and we play to win. It's pretty resilient to economic conditions, and we've actually been seeing some tremendous growth from our brands. At Shiseido Americas, we actually manage some brands at a global scale, not only just in our geography. And we're able to do that with some of our brands like NARS, Drunk Elephant, Tory Burch Beauty. Really exciting times for us, and growth has been our focus.
Yeah, play to win. That sounds aggressive. Tell me what that. I'd be afraid to compete with you now.
So play to win. It's interesting. We just had a sales conference for the U.S. It was actually in Las Vegas, and we actually used the theme play to win. I say that because I think over the last course of 2-3 years, being during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people weren't really sure about consumer reactions, how to really execute with all the retailers, and the dynamic between online, offline. For us, we've really generated a mindset of, listen, we know what our brands and how they resonate. We need to amplify, and we need to take an attitude that we have great brands and we need to execute. And we're not going to take mistakes or failures and say we did something wrong. We're going to take them and turn them into learnings and apply them. And so if we take this attitude of building to win and we continue to think that we're playing to win, we're going to win, and we're going to continue winning.
Yeah, I love that. We love competitivism on this program, and growth and innovation, all the buzzwords that you're doing it. I mean, how long have you been CEO now?
So about 3 years. I was the CFO previously, so it's an interesting kind of change.
So you know where everything is. That's good.
Yeah, I know where all the bodies are buried.
And you've run a bunch of companies and competitors and in the food space, and so you've got a great background. So as you moved into the new role, the big dog role, as we call it, how's that been going? What kind of rebooting did you have to do to kind of get it the way you want it?
Yeah, so there's two aspects of rebooting that I like to talk about. First, from a business dynamic standpoint, we had to relook at our portfolio and understand where our focus brands were and where our brands that we're not going to focus on. And we made some tough decisions. We've divested some brands. That's public, and we made those very careful strategic discussions. That was critically important because we couldn't try to achieve everything for every brand that we had in a difficult environment. So by doing so, we actually had to reboot our thinking around focus and prioritization. And so we were able to do that through this change management over a pandemic environment to a post-pandemic environment. And I feel we're really successful. I think for me personally, going from the CFO seat to the CEO seat was super interesting. It was a personal reboot just as much as a business reboot. I think the benefit for me on the business side is that I was able to bring a lot of the financial decision making in conjunction with some of the marketing decisions, sales decisions, manufacturing decisions consistently and coherently at the same time. We saved a lot of time and energy in review and discussions over, hey, is that a good financial decision? No, it's one business decision with all of those players in there. But for me, it's
Right.
just so interesting going from the financial advisor to the CEO seat. That was a joy.
I bet it reminds me of when I went from CMO of LG Zenith to CEO of a Silicon Valley company. Yeah, it's a whole new world, and suddenly you're large and in charge. So you talked about more focus, but it sounds like you're more results oriented, which is really good.
Yeah.
And the decision making process probably faster too, which is usually not a CFO trait. It's usually
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
usually the VP of no. So you've brought a whole different. You bring a new perspective of CFO background here. I like it.
I think what made me unique as a CFO that helps me as a CEO is that I didn't overanalyze. And I think that sounds counterintuitive to people who are CFO background oriented, where, data, data, data. And that's really important. I do believe in data and data analytics, but I'm in the game of beauty, and especially in luxury beauty. There is a consumer insight, an emotional connection, and then a speed to market that really has to come to making decisions in a more timely manner.
Yeah, how do you balance that? Because you're not just doing one thing. You mentioned focus, but you got a house of brands. You got Drunk Elephant and NARS and Shiseido brand on its own,
Yep.
of course. How do you actually keep the speed going when you've got all those different plates spinning?
Yeah, so one of the best things I was able to do during this reboot for us and over the last couple of years at Shiseido Americas is change the talent allocation, elevate certain people's positions to have additional and a more appropriate responsibilities for that speed.
Yep.
And we were able to recruit some talent as well. So it was a hodgepodge of the best. And so what I did was, for some people who was very accustomed of doing X, Y, and Z, or hey, you're in the sales organization and you're doing marketing at the same time. Sometimes my sales expert needed to go deeper in the sales organization rather than
Yep.
trying to go wider. And some people who have more strategic marketing capability were more trade oriented. Rather than looking at the brand love aspect of what we were doing, they were more engaged in what are we doing at retail. We're able to actually segregate and put leadership that can encompass that in a much more meaningful way that allows me to make decisions faster.
Yeah, makes sense. Plus, you brought in some new team. You augmented it with some new
Yep.
talent. That probably didn't hurt as well. And if you let's just shift to maybe the consumer side. So how do you guys look at really like innovation in terms of new products and services and followings? And so Drunk Elephant has a great following, but some of these were acquisitions versus homegrown. Kellogg, we look at, what do you build, what do you buy,
Yeah.
acquisition, what do you borrow? You seem to be good at all three of those. Maybe not so much on the borrowing. We don't know much about your partnering strategy, but yeah,
Yeah.
when you look at growth and innovation, how do you kind of look at those three different platforms for innovating new things?
Yeah, we always very consumer centric driven, right? So we have a very strong consumer insights, and we stay true to the brand DNA, right? You mentioned Drunk Elephant.
I
There
just
is
like saying that
clear.
name. It just
Oh,
makes
it's
me
so
happy.
cool. It's so
Just,
cool to say it. Whenever you can say
it's
drunk
such
in
a
a
bold
name, you
move.
feel good.
What do you want to name your company? Is this a bold move?
Exactly. We actually stay true to the brand DNA. And that actually leads us very much in our innovation process. Of course, we incorporate the consumer insight in that. We also incorporate science, right? And I think that's one of our things, whether Drunk Elephant, whether our brand Shiseido namesake, whether NARS, we can bring innovation as well to bring that element of surprise or efficacy and or new innovation that's never been done in our space. And when you bring that all together, you can have results like we had at NARS, which we had an incredible launch called Light Reflecting Foundation last year. We called
Yep.
it a unicorn. We call it a unicorn because it was not only twice as large as we expected, it was the largest in its history, and people in the industry are continually talking about it. We believe we have mastered that for several of our brands, and we continue to foster that for some of our brands that we're incubating further.
I love that. We look at rebooting companies, we look at people and platform and passion. We've talked a lot about the platform here, the products, the services, the go to market, but on the go to market side, what's the strategy there? DTC, direct, e-com
Yep.
versus going through the retailers.
Yeah.
Anything new coming up there?
Listen, it's an omni game for us, and it's been an omni game for all of our competitors for quite some time. I think COVID made it even more important that everyone understands omni.
Big time.
We have
Finally.
to select. Yeah, we have to select the right retailers as well, who either know the omni path as well and can associate that execution with consistency to our brand, right? And so, what I don't want to do is become transactional. If I become transactional, I miss that emotional connection. I used that earlier, and it's really important in luxury that you have an emotional connection. That's, to me, the real lifetime value, the real brand love that can be built is that emotional connection. And we want to be in that journey in life with you. And if we do that and we have the right retail partner that can be in that omni world with us, we're going to win. And we're doing some interesting things. For us in beauty, we're very much, using the buzzwords of metaverse and Web3, just like everyone else. We're executing. We're
Right.
executing things, and we're executing things with the right partners. You talked about not knowing where we are in partnerships. We've used Roblox as a lead partner in some of our activities. And we're really excited on what that's generating for us because we think there's new models that'll come out of that.
Right. The whole CRM side and actually getting relationship for brands has always been a bit of a struggle with retailers. Let's just say in between sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and you seem to be cracking the code there. A lot of different platforms and technologies to use. You seem very competitive. Didn't you start out as a chemist or something? You mentioned science.
Were you
I had to
pulling
go.
that one out, right?
I had to
Somewhere?
come back to science. Well, I was going to ask you a second ago, but I wanted to talk go to market first. Yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
for that kind of a background. So you get,
Yeah.
I know you get the product innovation side, but yeah, how's that kind of like helped you kind of reboot the go to market stuff?
I was actually a chemical engineer, so I don't know if
Uh,
that makes it even worse. Right?
does
So
you should be working at a petroleum company or
yeah.
something.
Well,
Well,
it's funny. That
there's
was one
both
of the
there.
job offers, and so was a pharmaceutical company before I joined a food company. I was a
Exactly.
chemical engineer. I did my master's also in chemical engineering, and I actually worked in manufacturing plants. I worked with R&D people and manufacturing to understand products and how to bring them to large scale manufacturing, and it was super exciting to me. And it was a very strong foundational environment. I did that for about 5+ years at a food company, and it was probably one of the best learning experiences. But what really exposed me was really that every decision I was making had a financial component. And I was helping building plants, selecting equipment, looking at throughput and first pass yield. And at the end of the day, I always ended up talking about a financial component as a KPI to my success or not my success.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes. And I was in a point where I said, wow, that's what really interests me. How can I actually learn more about that and help drive a business? Because there's one guy that I was mentored very early on in my career. He said, listen, we're engineers. He goes, I don't go to myself, say to myself and say to others, I'm an engineer. I'm a business person. I just happen to use engineering as my skill to help the business. And I say that whatever function you're in. When I was in finance, I said, I'm not just a finance person. I'm a business person. I just use my finance skills to help drive the business the best way I can.
Yeah, good advice. We have, large audience, both from student MBAs to executives like you, and I always ask you that question at the end because that type of career advice is like to have that kind of background. It's to me, it's very rare, and most people aren't curious enough to kind of know 3 or 4 parts of the business.
It's not like it didn't come with risk along the way, right?
You almost got stuck in the factory, probably.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on with trends these days in the health, beauty, and wellness, broader category? What are you seeing these days coming up the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, let's be real. COVID helped accelerate and accentuate self care, right? When things were shut down and people were at home, a lot of people took a look at how am I helping myself in well being,
Or not?
and
Yeah,
beauty, or not, because they need to have an awakening in that moment.
right.
Beauty is converging with wellness overall. And the digital space has accelerated that, right? Imagine you go to your kitchen today. It's so easy to get a refrigerator that tells you what inventory you have. If you bought that kind of refrigerator, what kind of inventory you have in there. And I'm sure there's applications that I've seen that can tell you what you should shop based on what you like and what you don't like. Well, guess what? That world, I foresee being the world of beauty in the future, where your home space, that self-care ability, that referral to services is going to be part of how you can enhance your life. And so this convergence is coming. It's a question really about how is it going to be disrupted? Is it going to be disrupted from beauty out? Is it going to be from outside in? Is it going to be incubated from new players who want to do that? I think all of it's going to happen. It's all going to converge. And there's so much white space in the world of how people define wellness that, it could come from the travel space. It could come from the fitness space. It can come from the food
Even
space.
from the alcohol space, it's crazy what's going on.
Absolutely. And that's where I mean that disruption is going to be everywhere. Yeah. It's how we choose. And at Shiseido, I think one of the things that we've said very clearly in the future is we're going to be a personal wellness company. We're going to help set that definition and path for us and our consumers. And we want to be part of that. And we believe we have a right to play in that, given our history, given our strength and quality of R&D. Right. And I think that's going to be very exciting and a very bright future for Shiseido and for the beauty industry.
Yeah, good position to be in. I met with number 2 at one of the top retailers last few days, and her comments were, hey, the health, beauty, and wellness, yeah, that's all converging, but so are other products in our stores. And they're finding it's starting from the, let's just call it the beauty journey or the skincare journey or the vitamin supplements journey. But however they're coming in, whatever shoot they're coming, it's usually one of those 3, because to your point there, it's a self-care. We need a better term than that, by the way, but it's that self-care avenue, and it's leading to other products in the store they never, maybe not potato chips, but that they never thought would actually be connected to that tissue, which is putting a different stress point on how do we actually engage while someone's in the store, while they're online, and after they leave, and how do we communicate with them, not just throwing random recommendations at them like Amazon does sometimes to us, even after we bought the same product, but more intelligently. So how do you, how do you see that playing out, both DTC, direct to consumer with you guys, as well as in your channel? So personalization, there's a lot of AI, AR tools out there. Just what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, there's lots of different shades of gray on personalization, right? Personalization for me is not just filling out a quiz, although there's many companies who do that well and then end up doing an offering or recommendation that actually works successfully. And it's not just in the beauty space, it's also in the nutrition space. We all know that. I think there's a lot more that goes at, I think diagnostic tools are really important in the personalization journey. When you think about beauty and skin and things that can advance the recommendation to the next level, measurements of your skin health, the way we can actually take digital shots of your skin or with moisture measurements and actually turn that data into something that actually is more precise and more curated. That to me is, we're on those doorsteps already. It's how do you connect that journey all the way into what a consumer is used to doing right now, which is reading a review based on that recommendation, perhaps hearing it from an influencer or seeing it on digital media, and then reading the review to go buy it somewhere where they can get it either simply or at a better cost. And so we need to go a little bit beyond, like I said earlier, the transactional piece of that piece and belong a little bit more in that connected space. And we're all on that, let's call it edge, or everyone's playing on that edge right now.
And how do you see the cooperation between you and your channel partners with that?
Yeah, I think everyone is reading it.
Issues around whose customer is it, all that nonsense.
Yeah, listen, data privacy and data ownership is like, the pile of gold that everyone's trying to convert into platinum, right? And so for me, I think there's some, and I said it earlier, there's some retailers who mind their consumer data better and can turn it into serving their consumers better. We want to partner with those, and I think those types of retailers are starting to test and learn. So for me, are we the right partner who's willing to test and learn alongside and make it a partnership to share that success and failure? And like I said earlier, failure is only good when it's applied learnings to the next step. And we believe we can do that, and we believe we have several partners that we can do that with.
Yeah, the test and learn, I think, is powerful. So how do you, loaded question, probably could take up the remaining time. How do you see yourselves competitively differentiating from all the other, health and beauty products and companies and lines out there? Everything from the highly personalized ones.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about,
Yeah.
the derm category, but in channel retail.
Yeah, I think one of the key differentiators is that our science has been proven for 150 years, and we continue to
A long
innovate.
time.
Yeah, and we continue to innovate. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's not relying on our laurels and the history of what we did. It's the continuation of what we continue to do bigger and better. And so for me, that's how we differentiate ourselves, our efficacy, our science, and our quality. And don't forget, there's an intangible piece where that comes from. We're still a Japanese-based company.
Right.
If you know anything about the Japanese culture, there's two things: a huge respect for product quality, for people, and our planet. And that's natural from the culture, and it emanates throughout our entire global organization. And when you have that, it connects and differentiates ourselves today because it's so relevant to the consumer. Instead of saying that I'm a product that believes in it, we naturally, from our roots and our DNA and our history, that's who we are. We don't have to learn to do that. We don't have to become that. We are that. And so for us, that authenticity is part of the differentiation point. I'll tell you, in luxury beauty,
Yeah.
you could tell anyone that you're a founder or this is you can do this 10 times better for your skin. At the end of the day, the bullshit meter from a lot of consumers, especially Gen Zs and millennials, is so high that if it's not authentic, they'll know it in a second.
Yeah. You'll never get through.
For us, we have so much authenticity to play in the consumer needs and the consumer trends today.
Yeah, and you put your money where your mouth is. The corporation invests billions in R&D. I forgot the percentage of revenue. It's very high.
Yeah,
But
3+%.
Yeah, from a Japanese culture, patience perspective, that's why I'm not even asking you about sustainability, because it's all the rage, as is AI and metaverse and other
Yeah.
things that aren't necessarily going to be mass market yet. So you guys kind of walk the talk, but I see all the other competitors trying to catch up on the sustainability phase, and it seems to be a issue. It's hard. It's hard for them to actually.
It actually comes down to where do you start, right? If you didn't grow up with that thought process in the way, then there's a cost
usually
change.
It's packaging. I mean, but
Yeah.
also ingredients. Like, what are you putting in your body,
That's
and
right.
what are you putting on it?
Here in the Americas, we're known within Shiseido as a group to be the leaders in clean technology. That's where the Americas R&D facility, which we call the Americas Innovation Center, we lead the clean trend in science for the company here. And because of that, we believe there's great learning that can be transferred anywhere around the world and great, let's call, capture of trends and partnerships here based in North America because we're physically co-located here.
Where's the innovation center?
So it's down in East Windsor, New Jersey. So it's about an hour and 15-minute drive from New York City, if anyone wants to know.
That's how people measure things in the East Coast. How long of a
Yeah,
drive?
that and exits, right?
An hour of that is just to get out of the city. I'm kidding.
Right.
So what types of things do you? So on the personalization side, we talked about technology and using AI and skin scanning and quizzes. What about the products themselves? I've seen big brands struggle with making a personal product for you versus me. Doesn't seem to scale well. Do you see a light at the end of that tunnel that maybe where it will?
Well, I think it's a mixture, right? I think there's a first level of what products can work for me, right? And then there's a degree of is personalization necessary to get to that point. I think you can differentiate between color, things that are shade oriented and shade matching. I think there's tools that allow us to shade match because let's be real, color is also an artistic expression of oneself. So, sometimes they want to choose that and not say, I personally think I want X, Y, and Z. They might be more, spontaneous in selecting something. But when it comes to things like skincare, the elevation and the science behind it, when you match it, personalization can come into matching a regimen, service, and products. But then when you go into the products themselves, I think there's going to be a balancing act. Right now, you said it right. The idea of creating a very specific product for that one person doesn't seem to be the largest, growth trend at the moment right now. Otherwise, do we have sun care for every one person,
There's small startups doing it, like in hair care and others, but it's, when I talk to someone like a Unilever, they're like, It's hard to scale that, Dean. Like, yeah, I understand,
It
but
is. We actually
maybe
tested
this
that as well.
decade, but maybe not next
Yeah.
decade. How far
We
out is?
tested it. We tested it ourselves about 4 years ago, and we actually did an
Ah,
investment in an asset as well that did exactly that in the skin in the foundation side of it for one of our brands, and exactly what Unilever said. We found the same, but we learned a lot, and that's the importance of understanding what the understanding of the personalization needs are at that time. How did we engage with the consumer to understand their needs and matching that? And again, sometimes it wasn't I wanted a formula. It would have been like, no, I wanted a product that matched well, that I also understand that that product has been in existence. And oh yeah, I can see, I could trust, I can understand that there's even more from that brand that could offer me something. So I think we learned a lot from that process. So what you heard from Unilever, I would say that some same way.
yeah, I just use them as an example, but the big brand guys, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Same thing in food. I mean, it's not just health, beauty, and wellness. It's across the board. It's called it's called the Model T assembly line.
Yeah.
We're still kind of in the industrial age, believe it or not,
Well,
guys.
when I was in the food industry, I was around
Yeah.
when the better for you category was exploding during that
Oh, I
time.
remember that.
You
Yes.
remember that? I mean,
Yeah.
that
I'm
was
not
the
sure all the
days.
viewers do, but
Yeah.
yes.
I know I'm dating myself right now, clearly, but certainly we're going to go through that in the beauty industry as well. There will be certain segments that we're gonna go, and then how does that convert into the core trends of the product offerings overall, not just a subsegment.
Yeah. I think part of that phase was Burger King, have it your way or something. They hate me at McDonald's. I'm always custom ordering. No salt, no this, no that. And they're like, there's nothing left. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'll take a coffee. So it's fascinating. So we talked about people, we talked about the platform. What about the passion? How are you creating this? So you bring in a lot of new people. Your corporation has just about every nationality on the payroll,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
fascinating, and you have to collaborate with them all over the world, not just
Mhm.
in the Americas. And yeah, so how do you, as the leader, how have you kind of rebooted that passion and
Yeah.
excitement and the culture and it's when you get
Yep.
to be a certain size, it becomes a whole different stack.
Yep. I owe it to kind of a phrase we've actually used recently called power of our community. And it's not just about working together well. It's really about, is it clear to everyone what our priorities are and what the purpose of each of our brands in our portfolio is? Because what happens in other companies that I've been with is that, and this comes from a very famous retired global CEO of a beauty company who said, in 6 meetings that I had to attend, because I was the head of finance for all 6 of these brands, I want you to be in the top 5. And I said after the 6th meeting, how do you get 6 brands in the top 5? Right? And it was this
And the top five in the
understanding
market, not in the
in
company, in the marketplace.
the
Yeah,
market, right? And so how do you do that, right? And
yeah.
so it was this idea that you are almost self-competing with yourself all the time. And for us, the power of the community is we can get all of our brands to win, we believe, but there is always a right time and a right place for each of them to either plan a little bit more. One's in an execution phase, one is a reinforcement phase. For me, that was a big change for us, and bringing this theme of power of community to be consistent, that everyone has to have the similar understanding of what the priorities are, is important. And then it comes to everyone has a hand in the success or not the success of the brand. So we were very easily falling into a situation during the pandemic where the supply chain was broken. Let's just face it, it was just disaster everywhere. Um,
It's
and yet it was,
old school
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
and it's really easy to turn around and kill your supply chain person, right? I can't do my business because supply chain. I didn't have the inventory. We can't have that spirit here. If we have that spirit here, it's actually just is negative vibes, and at the end of the day, it doesn't give me a solution to move forward on. We're very clear that we need to actually work together and find better solutions. If I don't have the inventory, I'm only going to promote or support the stock that I have. So I'm going to have to be much more agile and moving my programming around. And I have to have retailers understand that that's what I'm going to have to do. It's good for them just as much as it's good for me.
I love it. Ron, I want to thank you for joining us today. Any advice for people that want to get in the industry? Perhaps your email, they can send their resume. I'm just kidding. Yes, a lot of people coming into the market that they don't consider the beauty industry.
Yeah, I think people, and I've never left consumer in general
Yeah.
because I have to say that I love consumer as an industry and a sector. Beauty in particular is a unique animal, and I think it's understated. There is so much engagement that you can do not only with product but with consumers. It's a space that people should explore, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be in marketing, you don't have to be in finance, you don't have to be in sales. You could be in IT, you could be in manufacturing, you could be a chemist. It doesn't make a difference. That type of engagement is super exciting, and I think people should actually make it a try in their careers because it can be, like for me, something that I was in a manufacturing to a finance environment to the CEO seat eventually, is an exciting ride that it's really hard to replicate, but the opportunities are there in an industry like ours.
I love it. Great advice. You've been listening to Ron G, who is the president and CEO of Shiseido Americas. Great talk with you today. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Dean. Really appreciate it.